Testing. JB here. Hope everybody is doing outstanding. We have about 20 minutes left in this fine Friday, March 22nd, 2024. Just going to talk really quick about a couple names before the weekend. First I'll talk about this CGC trade, the canopy growth. Back in the day, the pot stock cannabis names were momentum. It was similar. I'm not saying similar to what's happened with AI right now and the chips, but it seems like every year, every couple of years, there's a sector that really goes on a roll. Cannabis is one of those that just went bonkers. I would have to go back and check. CGC, I think, was over 100. I think they did a split, but it was over 100 at one point, and then it's come all the way down. I think it was under $2 in the last couple of weeks, and then it's been on a tear. So it was, I think they say it's its biggest weekly gain in history. And you take a look at the weekly performance, it's up 143% this week. Germany reduced the, or I guess removed the restriction on cannabis. Like U.S. has I forget what they call it, but cannabis and marijuana are in a certain risk factor. So they're, controlled substances. Not really controlled substances, but they're not legal per se, unless the states, which has started to happen, start to legalize it. Similarly, in Germany, it has not been 100% legal until just now. So big news. I think it's April 1st. You take a look at a company like CGC, I think it's the third biggest marijuana distributor in Germany, or at least it will be. Trades 2 times revenues. You have to think there's going to be momentum over the weekend. There's going to be more chatter, and then I think it's just going to take off. And you take a look back, it was over 19 back in September, and that was after the U.S. was going to lower their rating. I guess they call it their risk rating. I forget what it's called, and put it in a different category, which would allow eventually just cannabis to be legal everywhere, which bodes well for companies that derive their revenues from cannabis. So this is a great story. Here it is at 750. Of course, I wish at the start of the week I went and got the inexpensive calls when it was in the threes, but it was moving and there wasn't really any news to speak of. So I thought maybe it was one of those meme stocks or the Reddit crowd was getting a hold of it, and then saw it moving today. And then once I saw that news, I said I got to just get some just in case there's some FOMO. Lucky enough to get the 8s. The 8s might they're getting close to 10 bags here. 135. So when they get to 180, it'll be 10 bags. Already locked a lot of those in. So yes, schedule 1. Thank you. And then I was looking for July, maybe July 10s, but I'm like, the momentum's going to go. There's 28 days till expiration, so it's 4 weeks. If it goes, it's going to go now. So I might as well get inexpensive April 10s as opposed to paying more for July 10s, because if it goes, it maybe goes $15. So I got the 10 calls for 30 cents. If it goes to $15, you're looking at a nice, 15, 16, 17 bagger, depending on when it happens. Or lock some of those in to cover costs. So now I'm riding free into the weekend. I think there's going to be hype articles, people are reading how to play it. And I think CGC is one of those names. I would love to play Tilray. Tilray I loved back when the United States was dropping it down to Schedule 1 back in September. But there's, you have, I forget the short, is it, one of these short funds came out with a negative hit piece on it. The leadership, I guess, is maybe not pristine, so there's a lot of holes that can be punched into the valuation, into the story. So I like it as a beer play, right? So they're getting into the craft beer side. Got the distribution deal from Budweiser. So I liked all that, but if I'm going to play it right now, I look CGC seems like a more cleaner name, so that's why I went and got those calls. I'm not saying I won't get Tilray at some point, but that's the thought process there. So that was really quick on CGC. GPCR got lucky. The premiums kind of held up, and then it started to spike. The premiums went up a little bit. I was able to lock calls in to cover costs. I put it on Friday right around this time last week that it's going to be, you have to think at some point there's going to be a buyout in the M&A space. There's going to be an M&A in the GLP-1 space, and hopefully it's this weekend. Either that or some data comes out, positive data. So lucky to get those out. The turn calls are kind of holding up there, although I still have some of the 10 freebies, which have taken a hit. And then VKTX. And those, I don't even know what those are at now. 170 by 2. So hang on. Where did I put those up there? Did I? Yeah, so I don't know, I would call it flat, right? I was just hoping to lock some of those into covered calls. I think they went up to $3 when it hit 74 and change yesterday. So I'll just hold on to those. So that's VKTX. The turn's still holding up there. I think at some point it has this golden cross set up on turn. So if you look at the chart and let's see if it crossed today, the 50-day moving average on turn is 655. The 200-day is 645. So the golden cross has happened. Typically, when you have a setup like that, it precedes large gains to the upside. We'll have to see how that plays out. But I think double digits at some point, especially if there's M&A in the space. Cardlytics, Clifford Sozen went out and bought another 350,000 shares, 5 more million that he purchased. He bought another 9 million at the start of the week. I think he got it at $14. And you watch some of the action today, it almost looks like he's adding more. He's had a huge position in Carvana. Obviously, Carvana's up quite a bit this year. So he's doing pretty well with that. Carvana makes up like 45% of his portfolio, and it's a very concentrated portfolio. He has 5 stocks on there. And CDLX is one of them, Cardlytics, but Cardlytics is the last of his holding, least concentrated of his holdings. So I don't know if he's trying to rebalance. Is he trying to get more exposure? Does he think Cardlytics is going to $50 in the coming months, which I think he probably does. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's adding more until they tell him he can't add anymore. So I won't be surprised. So I'll continue like that. I was looking at the April 2250s, and I was looking at the May 2250s. I'll probably just stand pat on the 20s because the premiums really haven't ramped up despite the, what did it close at $15 last week? Here it is at $16.20. Even when it was at the highs at $16.89, premiums weren't really that spectacular. So I'll probably just hold on to what I have there. And I think that's about it. There's still earnings next week. I don't even know if I pulled up the earnings yet. Take a look at Lulu. Of course, the time I don't play it for puts, it sells off. But the risk reward, the 400 puts, and stock closed at, what did Lulu close at? 480 yesterday? I think 480. And then it opens at 403 this morning. But then the puts, especially the 400 strikes, they're up like 200%. I'm like, how that reward for getting it right to that tune just didn't jive with me. So I would have been a little upset. And not only that, then you get the bounces. You hold on, it goes down to 387, and then it bounces $20 in an hour. And then whatever you held on to is either flat or red, and then you just call it a day, and you waste all that time, effort, energy just on that trade. So next week, is Restoration Hardware next week? Let's see. Not much. GameStop. Who cares about that one? Carnival, Paychex, Cintas, Restoration Hardware, Rumble. Oh boy. Walgreens. And that's about it. Also, I talk about DWAC, and I've been trying to trade that over the last couple weeks and last month or so, just because I think there's going to be some FOMO. And not only that, it's a proxy for Trump. So if folks are bullish him or want to support him, that's like almost like their way to do it. And I thought maybe that crowd would really pile in, and I'm surprised they haven't, even with this approval. Back when the news that they were that DWAC was actually the SPAC that his Truth Social was gonna come into, the stock went from $8, 10, 50, and then was next thing you know it was $150. It doesn't look like that's going to happen. The premiums were crazy, all the way up to $100 on the monthlies and up to 90 on next week's. I think the 90s were like $2. So I'm just going to stay away from that one. But interesting, definitely one to keep an eye on, just because you never know. And here's CGC. My calls are going to get in the money in about 5 minutes. It's 7.8, just hit 796. I think that's it. The Fed. So the market's now pricing in like a 68% probability of a rate cut in June, which is up from like 55% a week ago. So I guess Powell's kind of set up a possible scenario where they cut rates in June. So that's interesting. And then it's like at the July meeting, it's a 45% probability there'll be 2 rate cuts. So interesting stuff. But new highs beget new highs. We'll have to see how the SPY holds up. The upper Bollinger Band on the SPY I was talking about on the watch list this morning. 522.41, and here we are at 521.95. So I actually think it's a good thing we close underneath that, leave a little room, maybe some consolidation next week, a day or two, and maybe 525. Who knows? Tom Lee, he's been bullish to a fault. Even 2013, there was a lot of uncertainty. even 2004. Well, 2014 was a great year. I think the market was up like 35%. But even in uncertainty, he would come on CNBC and people would mock him because he was like uber bullish, and turns out he was right. And he hasn't always been right. He's been a big Bitcoin bull and things like that. But he came out with a big call last night on CNBC around the Russell, saying it has room to go at least 50% to the upside this year, which the Russell tends to have some large moves. And I don't know what the exact historicals are, but I think every year, or twice a year, the Russell averages at least 10% correction, because everybody gets all freaked out when the IWM sells off over a couple week time frame. But interesting, if that starts to go, that probably bodes well for the biotechs. A lot of these biotech names are wrapped up in the small caps. And I'm just waiting for the IBB to take the baton, or not even take the baton, but just to really start to break out, because it looked like it was going to start to go at the end of February, and then we've been just chopping around up and down. We probably need a major M&A event to really kickstart the biotech names, and CGC Canopy is going to hit $8 here. But that's it, folks. Let's have a great weekend. Thanks for listening. Let's have a great week next week. Rock and roll.